On the morning of June 3, 1998, a German family was enjoying their train journey while drinking coffee. This high-speed train was going from Munich to Hamburg. It was 10:30 in the morning, and so far, everything was normal. But just 12 minutes later, that family was terrified when a piece of steel suddenly tore through the floor from under their feet, right between their seat. But this was just the beginning of the most dangerous accident in the history of German high-speed trains. Viewers, in the late 1950s, Japan surprised the world when its Shinkansen, or bullet train, became the world's first high-speed train. This train connected cities across the entire country and made travel so fast that journeys taking hours came down to minutes. Following Japan's lead, France and Italy also built their high-speed rail infrastructure, and then Germany was not far behind. Germany started its own high-speed train project, which was named ICE, meaning Intercity Express. In 1980, when these trains came onto the scene, the world thought that this was the future of trains. Everything a person could imagine was taken into account in them. Aerodynamic design, the use of modern computers, and an exceptionally comfortable journey. Everything seemed perfect. But every perfect system has a hidden weakness, and the weakness of the ICE trains was their wheels. The wheels of the ICE Generation 1 trains were initially made in a monoblock design, meaning the entire wheel was made of solid one-piece steel, which was strong, cheap, and reliable. But a problem was noticed with this monoblock wheel. A few years later, passengers started complaining that when the train runs at high speed, there is a strange vibration. In the buffet car, where food is served, the glasses, spoons, and forks would start to make noise due to the vibration. These vibrations and noises were making the journey quite unpleasant. And then finally, when the engineers checked, the problem was inside the wheels. Monoblock wheels were indeed made in one piece, and the wheels were also equally balanced on all sides. But if even 5 grams of weight is added to one side at high RPM, this extra weight difference will create vibrations in the wheel, and in fact, that is exactly what was happening. Due to running at high speed, friction had worn down some sides of the monoblock wheels unevenly, which disturbed the wheel's balance. It wasn't noticeable at slow speeds, but when this unbalanced wheel rotated at 250 kilometers per hour, vibrations would run through the entire train. This is a common problem for any wheel. Even in a car's wheels, if 2 punctures are patched on the same side, the weight on that side increases, even if just by a few grams, which can cause vibrations at high speed. To solve this, wheel balancing is done, and a technician balances the wheel by adding an equal amount of weight to the opposite side. But balancing a train's countless wheels can be a very difficult task, especially if each wheel is made as a single piece. And replacing the wheels is not only difficult, but also quite costly. Therefore, German engineers came up with a new solution to fix this problem with the ICE trains, and that was resilient wheels. The special thing about resilient wheels was that they were not one piece. The inner ring and the outer ring were made in separate pieces, and between these two, a rubber ring was installed that would absorb the vibrations. This design was specifically adopted so that whenever the outer ring wore down, only that part would be replaced and not the entire wheel. At that time, this design was also being used in Germany's trams, but the problem was that trams only ran at 30 kilometers per hour, and the ICE trains had to run at 250 kilometers per hour. This was a very big problem, the details of which you will learn about later, but at that time, no one paid attention to it. Executives approved the design of the resilient wheels without any testing. And then in 1992, these new wheels were installed on all high-speed trains. Everything went fine for a few years. But in 1997, Hanover's tram company, Ustra, discovered something shocking. They noticed some cracks in the wheels of their tram. They replaced the parts of their cracked wheels and, as a precaution, also informed Deutsche Bahn, which was Germany's national railway company. But because there were no complaints of vibrations in the ICE trains at that time, Deutsche Bahn ignored this warning. And then, exactly 1 year later, on June 3, 1998, everything changed. At 10:30 a.m., ICE train 884 departed from Hanover Station for Hamburg. The train had 14 coaches, 2 power and 12 passenger cars. On board were 287 passengers and 8 crew members. When leaving Hanover Station, everything was normal. In coach number 1, Jörg Dittmann was traveling with his family. Their journey was going smoothly, but after a few minutes, something suddenly shot out from the train's floor, and in the next moment, a steel part tore through the floor and emerged between 2 seats. This sharp steel part was actually a piece of the wheel. Seeing this, Jörg and his family immediately panicked. It was as if the ground had been pulled out from under their feet. With the speed at which that piece of metal came in, if it had been a little to the left or right, his family would not have survived. He immediately sent his wife and children to the adjacent compartment and went to find the conductor himself. The conductor was in the 3rd coach at that time. Jörg explained everything to him. But according to company policy, the conductor could not stop the train until he saw the problem himself. So they both headed for the 1st coach. The train was still running at 200 kilometers per hour. And now the vibrations were gradually increasing. By the time the conductor and Jörg reached the 1st coach, the train had traveled another 3 kilometers and was now about to pass through a dangerous section where the track split. The broken piece of the wheel was still hanging underneath the train, scraping against the track. When the train crossed the 1st section point, that tire fell and hit a lever on the track. And at that moment, something dangerous happened. The track switch changed. Now, the 1st and 2nd coaches of the train were on one track, but the 3rd coach went onto the other track, meaning the front and rear bogies were in different directions. The train's body twisted, and coach number 3 slammed directly into a bridge's concrete pillar. This horrific collision destroyed half of the bridge. Coach number 4 managed to avoid the collapsing bridge but collided with the embankment, and 3 railway workers were crushed instantly. Coaches number 5 and 6 were crushed under 300 tons of concrete from the collapsing bridge. The height of those 2 coaches was later reduced to just 6 inches. Yes, just 6 inches. The remaining coaches coming from behind, 7, 8, 9, and 10, collided with each other at full speed and folded up like paper. Only the first 2 coaches, where Jörg and his family were, survived, and the front locomotive came to a stop 3 kilometers ahead. At the moment coach number 3 hit the bridge, the engineer and driver felt a jolt, but they were completely unaware of the catastrophe unfolding behind them. Where this catastrophic accident occurred, there was a small town named Eski. When the local people heard the sound of the explosion, they all rushed to the scene. The scene before them was something they would probably never forget for the rest of their lives. Wrecked coaches, pieces of metal, fire, and the screams of people. Some people were trapped under the bridge debris. Some were stuck in their seats, and the pressure-proof windows were so strong that breaking them was almost impossible. Rescue workers had to call in heavy machinery, but it still took several hours to reach the first trapped people. More than 1,000 rescue workers arrived at the site. Ambulances, military doctors, everyone started the operation together. A medical conference was being held nearby. 40 doctors from there also rushed to the site. But by then, it was all over. In this accident, a total of 101 people were killed, 88 were found severely injured, and about 100 people sustained minor injuries. The people in the first 2 coaches were fortunate enough to survive. German high-speed trains, once considered the safest in the world, had that impression shattered by the ESP disaster. This accident shocked not only Germany, but also people in France, Italy, and even Japan who use high-speed train networks. When investigators analyzed the entire site, it initially seemed as if a car had gotten onto the tracks. But when they saw the part of the wheel that had pierced the floor of coach number 1, everything started to become clear. When the logs were checked, it was found that a flat spot issue had been reported on the same wheel of the train before, and that too 8 times. But still, it was not replaced. Crack detection machines were also available, but visual inspections were still carried out with the help of a flashlight. The company would dismiss it by saying that those machines give false alarms. In 1992, a German research organization named Fraunhofer had also issued a warning that resilient wheels could be dangerous on high-speed trains. And in 1997, the Hanover Tram Company had also issued a warning, but both warnings were ignored. Engineers later explained that these tires rotated 500,000 times every day, and that too at high speed. In every rotation, the steel tire would slightly compress and expand back. This created fatigue cracks that grew day by day, and because of the rubber in between, the vibrations were absorbed, and no one realized that the wheels were actually cracking. And then finally on June 3, 1998, such a major accident happened just because of one broken wheel. The ESP disaster is considered the world's deadliest high-speed train accident. After this accident, the wheels of all high-speed trains were replaced back to the monoblock design, and all the bridges around the junction points were relocated so that such an accident would not happen again. After this accident, Germany re-evaluated its entire rail system. Pressure-proof windows were replaced so that in the future, if a rescue is needed, people trapped inside can be taken out by breaking the windows. Even today, the ESP disaster is taught as an example in Germany's railway training centers. Of course, monoblock wheels have a higher maintenance cost and also take more time, but at high speed, because they are cast in one piece, at least they don't break. And vibrations are a signal that the wheels now need balancing. I hope you all will like and share. Thank you so much for your lovely comments. See you in the next amazing video.